Hey there. Only if you've probably been stuck under a rock or without internet in the last, few weeks, you haven't heard about ChatGPT and how it's gonna break everything and take everyone's jobs. So I wanted to check whether ChatGPT can take up at least parts of my job. And those parts are writing a lot of SQL queries and fixing my mistakes there and doing data transformation in SQL. So today we will check whether ChatGPT is better at writing your SQL queries than you are. I will just wing it and go into ChatGPT, asking it questions and making it write query for the data sets that I have been using for my videos about SQL queries. So check those out if you haven't already. And let's dive into ChatGPT for SQL queries. Using ChatGPT for writing your own queries can be super impactful in a company because often it's a product manager, a person who's not very familiar with the data structure and not very familiar with SQL, although of course there are plenty PMs who know how to write really good queries, but they might not know that this table needs this certain filtering or that this function can produce a wonky weird result and it needs to be taken into account. So when they will be able to write easy and understandable prompts for ChatGPT, I think then at least data scientists won't have to write queries for the PM. So let's see if ChatGPT can actually do that. I will be using the tables. Okay, let's get into the ChatGPT. Hopefully it won't go out of bounds and won't kick me out while I'm making this video. First thing that I learned is that you need to specify the SQL annotation that you wanted to write in. So I will make it so that it is you. So I will ask it to use BigQuery annotation because that's the part where I can actually test the queries that they're correct. Assume that we are using BigQuery SQL for all the following questions. Right, let's see if it works. So let's start with something easy. Here we have a table called orders data with order ID, user ID, when the order was created, the price of the order, and the status of the order. I'll ask it, for example, so from this table with user ID, order ID created at, which is a timestamp, price of the order and order status, calculate minimum, max, and average order price. Let's see, what will it come up with? Interesting. Why do we need that? Okay. I wonder why it thinks that it has to be a CDE. Yeah, okay. That is the most common, normally written query that you would use for that. So let's see if it works. So this is the query that it suggested, and we'll just swap the table name. And I think that is correct, yes. Although the average price is not rounded up, though you can imagine that price cannot have less than a cent. And here we have 60.75 cents, but I did not specify that it has to handle this situation. Let's ask it what it thinks he can actually do with this data. So with the provided table, which has user ID, order already created at price and order status columns, you can do a variety of analysis in SQL. Here are a few examples. You can group the orders by order status and calculate the count of orders for each status. That is correct. It does work, except let's imagine we don't double count. Then we can group the orders by user ID and calculate the total price. So how many each users earn. Works good. Can group the orders by created it, date or month, and calculate the total price. Yep. Order date. That also works. We can join the table with another table containing user information based and analyze the data based on the user characteristics. Exactly. So, for example, we have the age column in the user data. So here we could check some, well, I argue that the fourth is very opportunistic of the ChatGPT, and the sum of orders by gender, I'm not sure how much it will give us without knowing how many users of each gender we have. But nice shot. Good try. Okay, let's add another table which we have called user events. With user ID, timestamp, event name, and event type, but we're not going to use the event type. From the two tables we have, find which event name happened before the order was created for each user. Let's see if it will be able to understand it, because that's not the most precisely written prompt. And it might be misunderstood. So I think writing prompts is a pretty important skill that we will have to learn for sure. Probably have trainings on how to write prompts to make ChatGPT write SQL queries for you. But let's see what ChatGPT is offering. We have an inner query where we select user ID, event name, timestamp from the events. Again. Interesting. Let's see first what's happening here. So we're looking at the timestamp, which is less than created timestamp from the user, where we're, interesting. I am very interested if this is going to work. Let's see. So we have our orders data, and that table will, yes, this is the one. And here wait, what? So here is orders, here is user events, and here we fix the end user event is user events. Here is, let's just create alias. From orders, and instead of order data, this was user events. Okay, we don't need that. is not gonna work because events user ID. Maybe. Interesting. So let's see if he can fix the fact that correlated. I apologize for confusion. Great, first query is indeed incorrect. That's not the first time. When I checked it myself, I did have a lot of errors. It's a correlated subquery. Yes, you can do self-join. All right. Let's see if this one is better, where it fixes it so that it doesn't have a correlated subquery. We still need to fix, so this is the orders, this is user events. I mean, it could have also added a common table expression instead of this one, but let's see what's gonna happen now. We still have a problem. Oh. Yes. I don't think he understood what I wanted it to write, because let's walk through this query. So in the inner query, we have the user ID and minimum created at for the order, which is already not what I wanted because it's only minimum, and not even correlated it with order ID, so we don't know the order ID. And then in the outer query, we extract user ID, order ID, okay. Joining user events. And we look at user ID between orders and orders where the minimum. That really just does not make sense. My God, it doesn't understand. Okay, what was the other query that it suggested? User ID, order ID created at. No. That one doesn't work either. Here, maybe we have here, it's using a window function at least, which is something that we want to do to be able to do that. Maybe, yes, okay. We still kind of want the order ID here. But we don't need to have a row number 1. Okay, let's see what it remembers we have. Orders table? Yes. User events table, user ID, timestamp, and event name. You want to find the event name that happened before the order was created for using. Yes! That is what I want. Okay. Let's write specifically what kind of output we want. order creation timestamp, and event name, the event which happened directly prior to the order being it would be easier to write a query by this point for sure. And then TS as event TS, for example. All right, let's see what we get. Events before order. Okay. Again, row number. I don't think it understands. Like in my head, when I think about writing this query, I think that first I kind of need to union these two tables-ish with some proper fixing of the columns because they don't match, of course. So I need to union these, and then I need to do the window function over, maybe lag over this union. I don't think he gets it. Okay, here we have the ordered. Again, it's just missing the order ID. Where does it get the order ID? What is this gonna output? Okay, let's just see what is this gonna output, because I'm too impatient and lazy to try to figure this out on our own. So we have the orders data. Let's see what we need to fix that. Here is the orders, and here is the events. Just fix it up. User events here. And delete that. It says it's gonna work. And there is no data display, of course, because, yeah. Why though? Let's do the debugging as I normally do at work. So we have this user ID and we have these orders, which were 5th, 4th, and 7th. And we also have that table with event. So we need to find, maybe actually it's right and there is nothing that happening before. Star from where user ID is that one. Let's see what we have. There are some user IDs. So here, where is that? No. Come on. Orders data. Show me the orders data. So on the 5th, was created at 00, and the event was on the 4th. On the 4th, there was a maybe this is how we discover that we have an error in data. Yep, it does work. Huh, am I gonna get fired? It does work, but not really. Because it only shows the last event for all of them. Okay, I rushed into being stressed and nervous. So as you can see, all the events are from the 9th of December whereas the orders were from the 5th and 4th and 7th, and we do have more events happening. At least on the 7th, there is an event. So technically, if we want to get the next event, which I changed now in the queries so that we still, we want, no. Okay, let's give it another shot. So here I wrote that I wanted to change the query to get the next event for the order ID instead of the previous. Yes. At least when it writes what I want, what it thinks I want, it is correct. I know, I probably didn't copy the whole thing. Yeah, it does. I think it's the same as I did. I don't think it works. So, okay, we'll just add it here, and we need to fix the table names. Should have made it use the right table names so that I don't have to suffer. And the orders data. It's here, and we delete these. And it's not gonna, it should, please don't. Okay. Something else happened. So it splits it by day, I think. So after order ID 9001, which happened at midnight, we did have an event, actually 2 events, and the next one, the first one was app open, and that is correct. Confusing, to say the least. Also, I find it much more annoying to have to debug a query that's written by an AI than I would have to debug the query that I wrote myself and that I kind of puzzled together myself. At least I know why I used each of the parts and it makes sense to me. Why it chooses the things that it does, it doesn't make sense to me. The way I think about queries, I guess, is a little bit different, and I think of them as like blocks of data that needs to be first matched together, then calculation is done over that data, and this is like a black box of, I don't know, thoughts, random thoughts. It is not very wrong, but it's not exactly what I want it to be and wanted to produce. So for that case, I'd say to write complicated queries, especially on the complicated data sets, is definitely not ready. Obviously, it can be fixed up and trained on data sets that a company has, because now it just like has my explanation of what there is. So with that, I can see the use of it for companies which license this and have some professional ChatGPT license and make it write queries may work. However, it's already complicated enough when you have a very convoluted, complicated query using a lot of different tables, a lot of different filtering, a lot of different calculations, and when you find that there is an error, that like numbers don't match the reality, and at least they seem like completely different from reality or just a little bit off, debugging that is pain. And debugging this is even more pain. I don't know, can you make it self-debug? Let's see. What will it has? No, okay, that's not what That's not what I wanted. Yeah, let's say, well, that does make sense. It is helpful to run a query in a smaller subset. It's reasonable, but still not what I wanted exactly as the output. Anyway, let's see how this OpenAI deals with interview questions, because I think that would be more of its like ground. And common interview questions, especially for product data scientists that do a lot of A/B testings, can be, of course, about A/B testing. So we'll come up with a little table with A/B test results and ask this ChatGPT what it can analyze out of this table. So we will make it do another task, still using BigQuery. And this one is similar of questions around A/B testing that people get during interviews. So let's say we run an A/B test for 30 days, and as the output, we have two tables. First table is with A/B test assignments, where we see the user ID, group ID, and assignment timestamp. And the second table with user activity, with user ID, timestamp, and milliseconds active. And a common question that you can get for that is, how can you say whether the A/B test was successful or not? And let's see what it can answer. To determine whether an A/B test was successful, you can compare the performance of the two groups. One way to do this is use SQL to join two tables on the user ID column and then calculate the average milliseconds active per user per day for each group. That makes sense. You can then use a t-test, t-test, to determine whether the difference in average milliseconds active between the groups is statistically significant. Perfect. So far, so good. So we have activity by day. Right. Yeah. So ChatGPT tells me that this query joins the A/B activity table with the B assignments. Yes, that is correct. On the user ID column, then groups the rows by user ID and group ID and day, and calculates the sum of milliseconds active for each group per day. Finally, groups results by group ID and calculate the average milliseconds active per user per day for each group. All is great, except we don't know whether this activity milliseconds are coming from before or after the user was assigned to the A/B test. And that's why we do have the assignment timestamp. Where did I tell it that? Yes, assignment timestamp, and it completely skipped the fact that we have an assignment timestamp, which maybe it just doesn't understand. What is it? Let's see what it says. Okay, that's not exactly what I wanted, but exactly. Your apologies, the query does not cover the case where the user ID is present in the A/B activity table before it was assigned to test a group in the A/B assignments table. Exactly. So an original query that ChatGPT wrote, if a user wasn't assigned to the A/B test for, I don't know, 15 days out of the 30 days that we ran it for, all of this data will be calculated towards the group the user was assigned to after the 15 days. So if the user was in no group for 15 days, but then it was in the test group, then all this data will be added to the test group and it'll skew the results, therefore it's not correct. And yeah, it did add here the assignment timestamp, but only when I told it to. So to wrap this up, this is a long video, but I want to say, based also on my previous experience checking out a little bit ChatGPT, do not use it to write queries for you. Use it to ask it simple questions like how to convert a timestamp to a date in BigQuery. It will write you the answer that will probably be correct. Or what things could I do with this data, but don't take it exactly for granted and don't just assume that whatever it tells you is correct. I mean, they have this disclaimer, of course, but it looks so convincing and it is not correct or not taking into account things that you should take into account. And I think it's easy to fall into the trap of like treating it as a smart professor or treating it as a smart person in the class of SQL, which you might cheat by stealing their exam paper or something. And it's not correct. I think it should be more of the reverse situation where you assume yourself as a smart professor who knows everything perfectly and then ask this student of ChatGPT of how would you do that and how would you do that. And while you're looking at the answers, you should really like scrutinize every line, why it did this and why it didn't filter here, and just constantly check up whether the results make sense against the real data, because yeah, it looks very convincing, but I think right now it's only really good for, you know, the movies where for whatever reason you have a data scientist and you needed to write the query, and you know, of course the actor doesn't know SQL, so that way ChatGPT can provide you a very, very convincing output of an SQL query that looks like it makes sense instead of just having random letters on the screen. But whether it works correctly or not, that's a really good question. And as of now, do not rely on it for writing your queries, especially if that will cost you any money. If any business decisions are made on this, don't. Just struggle through and do it yourself. You will understand it much better. And then when you understand it, maybe it will be a little bit useful because you can at least see the query and see that something is wrong, rather than just accept it on your first try. Hope this was fun and useful, and don't worry, for a few years I think still data scientists and data analysts will have a job, but maybe it's a good time to learn some other things that are not yet taken over by AI. Thank you for watching and have a nice day.